our previous segment, we talked about the three primary light colors, which were blue, green, and red. Now we want to talk about the three primary pigment colors. So now we're talking about things like paint. This is the kind of stuff that you did in elementary school, where you took a certain amount of this paint and a certain amount of this paint and you added them together. So it turns out that the three primary pigment colors are going to be magenta, and then the color yellow, and then the color cyan. So in elementary school, when they said that the three pigment colors were red, yellow, and blue, they were lying to you. So I guess they were just trying to make things easier. Now they were truthful in this one. So one of the pigment colors really is yellow. But the one that they referred to as being red actually is magenta. And the one that they referred to as being blue is actually cyan. And so if you look at that picture, you notice that cyan does look kind of bluish, and you notice that magenta does kind of look like red. So this thing here, the three pigment colors are not red, yellow, and blue. They're magenta, yellow, and cyan. And the next time that you go to a store to get color cartridges for your inkjet printer, you might notice that they sell magenta pigments, they sell yellow ones, and they sell cyan ones. So by mixing different combinations of these three pigments, you can make any color that you want. So in the same way that you can mix any of these light colors to make any color of light, you can mix any of these pigments together to make any color of pigment. So what can you get? So in the same way that we had the three intersecting circles that represented light, we can have three intersecting circles that represent pigments. So let's see what happens when you mix cyan, so C for cyan, and yellow. So we're going to take yellow paint and mix it with cyan paint, and it makes green paint. Well, that's what you expect. So that's what you did in elementary school. So when you took yellow and blue and you put them together, you got green. Well, remember that what they called blue really was cyan. Okay, what happens if you mix cyan with magenta? Okay, then you end up with the color blue. Okay, and then finally, what happens if you take magenta and yellow and you add them together? Then you get the color red. Now, what happens if you add all of those colors together? So you take equal amounts of magenta, yellow, and cyan, and you put it together. Well, when you did it in elementary school, you got kind of a brownish color, but you really should have gotten black. So magenta plus cyan plus yellow makes the color black. Notice it's the exact opposite of what happened when you added the three light colors together. So how do we tie this together? So how do we tie pigments into light colors? And so in the upper left-hand corner there, I've got the three pigments listed. So that you got magenta, cyan, and yellow. And then notice that the pigment magenta will remove the light color green. So that if you've got a piece of paper that is magenta in color, so that's its pigments are in that piece of paper, and you shine green light on it, that green light will be absorbed by the piece of paper and it will be turned into heat. So each pigment is made up of different kinds of atoms. And so magenta atoms, the atoms that compose the color magenta, will react to different frequencies than what the atoms that compose the yellow pigment will. And so it turns out that magenta absorbs the light color green. Cyan absorbs the light color red, and then the pigment yellow is going to absorb blue. All right, so just as an example of how this works, pretend that you have a yellow piece of paper. All right, so this is the color yellow. So that's the pigments that are in that piece of paper. Okay, now you're going to shine white light onto it. So white light is a combination of blue, green, and red. So those colors are all mixed together, and they're coming down and they're going to hit the yellow piece of paper. So what does the color yellow absorb? The pigment yellow is going to absorb the light color blue. It's going to turn the blue into heat. It's going to make the atoms vibrate that are in here, but the atoms are going to spit back out the other colors. So what are the other colors that are being spat out? So we had red, blue, green, and red coming in. The blue is absorbed, so that means the green and the red are the things that are leaving. So what happens when you mix the green and the red together? So if we go back to here and we mix those colors together, we get the color yellow. So what your eye sees, so your eye is over here, the light source is over here, so it bounces off the yellow piece of paper, goes into your eye, you see a yellow piece of paper. Wow. What do you think if it was a red piece of paper? What would you see with your eyes? A red piece of paper. And so by having various combinations of pigments, your eyes will perceive different colors of light. And so that's how that works. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the color of objects and what light are you shining on them.